Hello, BookTube, and welcome to Cimmerian September 2025. This is an event created, of course, by Michael K. Vaughan to celebrate the writings of Robert E. Howard in the month of September. Robert E. Howard is Michael K. Vaughan's favorite author. He is, Michael K. Vaughan claims, and I think he's right, the greatest pulp author of them all, and also the creator of an immortal character, Conan the Barbarian. But unlike previous Cimmerian Septembers, you are not restricted to any particular character for Samarian September. You are not restricted to the pastiche novels of Conan, of which there have been many, and they're still trickling out, or to the original stuff. Although I should point out that since there are no rules for Samarian September, I should remind you of something that was said often in the first Samarian September years ago, which is that it is possible for you to read everything that Robert E. Howard wrote of Conan the Barbarian in 1 month. It's a big amount. It's a fat book. But if you parcel it out a little per day, you can easily do it. And then you would have read all the Conan stories. But no, for 2025, the remit, if you want to call it that, for Samarian September is to read anything that Robert E. Howard wrote. He wrote a lot of different stuff. He was a working author. He would have become a titanic literary figure had he not killed himself young. He killed himself young. And in that time, he went wherever the market took him. So he wrote a lot of stuff. Western sports writing, exotic travel adventures set in the present day, historical fiction, and also the fantasy fiction by which he's known. So there's a wide variety to choose from. So you would think that I would not choose the first day of Cimmerian September to break the rules. But I did. I went to the comic books, which were not written by Robert E. Howard. And not just the comic books, but once again I have returned to the Savage Sword of Conan. Not the one that's currently publishing, and that just recently, for Savage Sword of Conan number 7, published an absolutely classic issue of Conan. But rather the Savage Sword of Conan that came out a long time ago from Marvel Comics. Marvel Comics did Conan the Barbarian, a 4-color comic book, normal-sized comic book on the comic book stands, and it did well enough so they thought they could do a black and white magazine of Conan. And they called it Savage Sword of Conan, and it also did well. Ran for a long, long time. And I stuck with it for a long, long time. But I dropped off after around issue number 100. And in a recent Cimmerian September, a couple of years ago, I read a huge amount of Savage Sword of Conan, but I read them as digital copies. And just recently, the Brattle Bookshop, my used bookstore, got a big tranche of physical copies of Savage Sword of Conan. And not only that, but they got issues that after number 100, issues that I'm not all that familiar with. So I got a bunch of them. I thought I'd go through them for Cimmerian September. So I started with this one. This is Savage Sword of Conan number 103 from 1984, when all the world made sense. And that is a Bob Larkin cover. It's painted, and it's very interesting. It's an interesting artistic choice on board there. The reason that the powers that be at Marvel Comics opted for the Savage Sword of Conan to be a black and white magazine, in other words, something that would be stored in bookstores and drugstores in a different place than the comics rack, in a place where children weren't allowed to look. The whole point of that was that it would be more explicit, both sexually and with violence. That you'd give Conan a little bit more chance to be a thief, a reaver, and a slayer. That was the whole point of this, and yet Bob Larkin decides on something, and he makes a choice for this cover. That is the cover, of course, of Conan the Barbarian eviscerating an enemy with his sword. But what do we see? We see the sparks flaring off Conan's sword, ripping apart the chainmail. And a very excellent little detail, we see the rings of chainmail blasting off as well. Larkin decides whether it was his decision or whether it was an editorial imposition. He decides to give us that special effect rather than the guy's guts falling down, rather than the gore that you would expect to see here, that in fact you would see here. The sword would strike sparks from this, but the thing you would notice if this were real life would be that he's disemboweling the man. Instead, we don't get that. And the main contents here is a story called The White Tiger of Vendhya. And it is it's an odd story. It's a little pocket adventure. Let me see if I can get you. Yeah, there we go. The White Tiger of Vendhya. Vendhya is in the Hyborian age of Robert E. Howard. Vendhya is their version of India. So this wild, exotic place. And although this is a Savage Sword of Conan, this is not written by Roy Thomas and is not drawn by John Buscema. It's written by Michael Fleischer and drawn by Pablo Marcos. And yet I did not find anything to object with to either of those. The artwork even grew on me. It's a little dorky, but it grew on me. And the point of this episode, the main point of this episode, is a character that recurs in Conan pastiche fiction. It occurs in some of the novels. The character is, he's a major character in the Conan world, in the kingdom of Turan. And his name is Yezdigerd. That's the king's name, Yezdigerd. I think that's dumb. It's an anagram, obviously, but it's Howard is usually not that bad at naming people, and yet to name such an important figure this way is just so dumb. It's just so dumb. Now, King Yezdigerd has a wide domain, and he collects taxes from that domain. And recently, his taxes have been stolen by Conan and his band of warriors. We see an opening sequence where they do just that. See, these soldiers are pulling into this square, assuming that this Conan figure, if he even exists, if he's not a myth, he's not brave enough to take us all on. So we've managed to get back home without any trouble to this wagon laden with treasure. And in the corner, Pablo Marcos adds a little detail, which is that no, not all is as it seems. They are in fact going to be waylaid for their treasure, and it is in fact going to be stolen. And this is one of the stories. There's another story that's going on that involves another king. But first, we have to talk about how upset the king is that Conan keeps stealing his taxes. He's so upset that he summons an expert in combat from Kitai, which is the Hyborian age era, the Hyborian epoch's version of China, of the mystical Orient. And this person, let's see what his name is. General Zhang Tsak, Tsak. He is summoned to King Yezdigerd. Rather sumptuous details there. And ordered to stop Conan from stealing taxes at all costs. You're the expert here. See? You do the fancy fighting. And you wear the fancy mask. So you're going to stop Conan from stealing my taxes. That's just what's going to happen. And so he sets out to do that. And promptly, in one page, falls into the dumbest, easiest trap imaginable. And he completely fails. Conan's men induce a polite little avalanche. They steal all the taxes. There you see the general cursing Conan on horseback. He can't reach him. He's cursing Conan. And Conan and his men decide, well, enough with the thieving. I mean, this is a lot of fun, but we're now seriously hurting this guy. He could send an army against us. We'd better lay off. So let's split all our takings and go our separate ways. We'll all go on the lam. We'll go on vacation. We'll lay low. This was fun while it lasted. So we see them making that pact. They are all going to go their separate ways. Conan doesn't kill them, and they don't try to kill him. But meanwhile, the general has to explain his failure to King Yezdigerd, and he tries to do that, and it's a wonderful exchange of dialogue. He says, "There was admittedly a miscalculation made today, Your Excellency, but next time, I assure you," and the king says, "Next time, General, I admit I never realized you Far Easterners had such a droll sense of humor. Seize him!" That's what's happening in Agrapur, is that you don't get a second chance. You're going to be seized and killed. But he manages to escape, and he vows vengeance on Conan. He is waving his fist again. He's quite the fist waver. But in the meantime, Conan has decided to vacation in Vindia, where things are going on of their own. Vendhya is a serpent-haunted land. It is a green and verdant land. It is also a tiger-haunted land. And Conan immediately comes across a tiger in a pit, trapped. and basically says, better you than me, but he's no hunter. He's not going to do anything to the tiger. But the white tiger of Vendhya does not know that. The white tiger of Vendhya attacks him right away, because the white tiger of Vendhya is a protector of Vendhya's tigers, and kills those who hunt them. And there's a savage fight here. Now, keep in mind, Conan is Conan, right? A normal man, there would not be a savage fight. But Conan eventually escapes from the tiger. We don't know whether or not he could have won. I don't think so. And falls into the water, collapses, barely alive. And while he is recovering, we see the general finding his various cohorts, all the ones that split the treasure with him, and killing them, ignominiously killing them. Conan wakes up and he recovers. A kindly old hermit saves him, as they so often do, and he goes to the Maharaja of Najapur. The old man goes to the Maharaja of Majapur and tells the Maharaja, I've met a man and I saved him, I nursed him back to health, and he fought the white tiger of Vendhya and did not die. He fought the tiger and lived to tell the tale. And Conan eventually, that brings Conan to the attention of the Maharaja. There we go, a splendid panel there. And the Maharaja has a reason. He has a reason why he wants to know more about how you beat the white tiger of Vendhya, because the Maharaja once fought the white tiger of Vendhya, as you can see. He's another fist pumper in the air. But, he fought the white tiger of Vendhya, and it maimed him. He's forever waving around this very neat stump. There are not even folds of skin there. Again, the whole point of Savage Sword of Conan is that you're supposed to be able to repulse us visually. Maybe it was just Pablo Marcos. Maybe he just didn't want to draw something repulsive like that. This could have looked a lot better, or wouldn't he put a hook on it, or a metal hand, or something like that? Instead, you get that little stump. And the Maharaja has decided that his vengeance for this maiming, his Ahab-style vengeance, will be to capture a whole bunch of tigers, and once he has a great enough number, immolate them all, burn them to death. He does this now. The whole time that he's explaining his fiendish plan to Conan, the general is still one by one killing all of his associates, trying to learn where Conan is. The Maharaja tells Conan, well, you're going to help us find the white tiger, and it's going to be the crown of my horrible tiger slaughter. And they immediately do. It's actually a silly scene where the Maharaja says, Conan says, we're not far from the white tiger, and the Maharaja on his elephant says, impossible, we've seen no spoor, no tracks. And Conan says, because the midday rain washed out the tracks, but there are stalks of tall broken grass here and over there. And what is more, if your senses had not been long since dulled by the frankincense and keef, you would have been able to pick up the white tiger's scent as I have. And also, you'd be able to see it standing right there, 10 feet away from you. And it attacks, of course. It's actually defending a trapped tiger. And it is white, so the artist Pablo Marcos doesn't have to worry about giving the thing stripes. And it is defending this tiger against the archers of the Maharaja. But the Maharaja is wounded. It's getting in the way of this other tiger. And the Maharaja says, no, I want to be the one to kill this animal because it named me. And Conan stops him. Some instinct tells Conan that this tiger is not the enemy. So he stops the Maharaja. And a guard clubs him unconscious, rather unceremoniously, just clubs him unconscious on his horse. And when he wakes up, he's in the presence of this beautiful woman, Bengala, and all of these tigers. And she says, he tells her, I'll protect you, but she says there's no need because I'm the mistress of these tigers. Look at that artwork. Very good cross-hatching there. Well done. I might point out from Conan pastiche fiction in the comic books, this is not the first time, or the last time, that Conan will meet one of these women. he meets a woman in the Conan the Barbarian comic book. He meets a woman who is the mistress of polar bears. He meets another one who's the mistress of wolves. Here he meets one who's the mistress of tigers. I don't remember in the exact chronology whether or not he's already met any of those women. Probably not, since he seems deathly surprised by what happens later on in the story. But she tells him, you know, I am the mistress of these tigers. I protect them in the woods of Vendhya. And then they get it on. She says, I am sworn to protect them, but tonight, yes, tonight we shall give our all in the enjoyment of far, far more pleasurable pursuits. And you've got a tiger in the background there just cleaning itself. From what I've heard from cat owners, the tigers would just watch, would just awkwardly watch. But in the meantime, the Maharaja has lost track of Conan. He's lost track of the white tiger of Vendhya, and it's made him even more obscenely desirous to kill all of these tigers. See, he's once again waving his stump in the air. Just inept. There's no detail at all there. It's just an outline with white. So he decides, I will conduct this gigantic bonfire of tigers early and without the white tiger of Vendhya, because either A, I will manage to kill all these tigers, which is good for me, or B, the rumor of this Holocaust will bring out the white tiger, and I'll get to kill that tiger too. It's win-win. So he decides to do that, and it works. Conan stalks into this chamber with Bengala at his side, and he wonders, why don't you have any weapons with you or anything like that? Why are you coming alone? But she's not alone, and she's not weaponless. She is the white tiger of Vendhya. Look at that transformation panel, huh? She leaps off the giant tiger carving onto the Maharaja, and kills him. And they manage to set free all of the tigers. In the process, she takes an arrow. In her tiger form, she takes an arrow. We get the transformation back there. But it's not a permanent wound. Conan can fix it. And so very shortly, they are back at it again. They're back. She doesn't even have a bandage. She's probably a quick healer. They're back in her stronghold. The horrible persecution of tigers by the Maharaja is over. But wait, you forgot about him, didn't you? He shows up. How dare you? You cost me everything. You humiliated me in front of the king. I will have my vengeance. And so they fight. And at one point, this fancy pants jumps over one of Conan's sword swings, but it's not really much of a fight. I mean, it goes on for a few panels, but there really isn't a contest here. I mean, this guy's not going to beat Conan. And he doesn't. Conan doesn't even do him the basic courtesy of gutting him like the figure on the cover. Instead, he just snaps his back and just leaves him there face down on the ground while he goes back for more helpings of you-know-what. And that's the end of this guy. And it does raise a question for me that I often wonder about, and I had friends in decades past that wondered about this, that what if a trained fighter fought Conan? Not some palace guard, but an actual trained fighter. Someone who knew not only weaponry and had trained them their whole lives, but also unarmed combat, which was known. It has been known forever. There have been schools of unarmed combat going back for thousands of years. And as someone who is in good shape and knows unarmed combat will simply win against a big bruiser. And Conan doesn't know that. He doesn't know any of those skills. So what would happen if he came across someone like this guy? In reality, what would happen? But not this time. This guy is killed rather easily. I suppose the tigers will eat him. Will eat his body. I don't know. But that was the issue. That was the white tiger of Vendhya. The issue starts off with the letters page. And one of the letters is, the address is withheld, but the writer writes, too often you have had Conan cutting through his enemies like a scythe through a field of wheat. You have made him so larger than life that the only things which provide a challenge are demons, superhumans, sorcery, and the like. Try human drama to make the story more interesting. I don't remember a co-star that I really cared about in any of these issues. And the editors respond, we didn't make Conan larger than life. He was always larger than life. That's even the way he was in the first stories ever written about him in the 1930s by Robert E. Howard. And he's always fought demons and sorcerers and the like. That's the way things were back in the Hyborian Age. So that was my first foray into Cimmerian September for 2025. It was an issue of the Savage Sword of Conan that wasn't written by Robert E. Howard, never dreamt of it, no story that comes from any of his canon. I still enjoyed it. And if we were to look at these issues for classic Conan moments, that's what we want, right? In any pastiche of any kind. We want that thing that rings true. We want that feeling that we've gone back to the flame imperishable, that we've gone back to the source, and at least that detail was right, was done right. And there are some in this issue. I would say the biggest one probably, I mean, Conan's motivation for doing most of what he does in this issue, once he stops stealing the king's taxes, are a little murky. They're a little superhero-y. I don't know that he would do what he does in the main part of the story in the Maharaja's land. I don't know that he would do what he does in that part of the story merely because he betted Bengala. It's a huge risk for no reward. But the betting of Bengala, that exotic freebooting way of living in the world, that element is very attractive, and that element is kind of essential to Conan. So that is a good Conan moment. This story gets one lopped head on the Conan scale. I enjoyed it. I'd kind of like to see this scene somewhere in the story. There's a backup story in here of Bran McMorn. We need not worry about it. So that is Cimmerian September Day 1. And what about you? What are you doing for Cimmerian September? Of course I want to know. Are you planning on reading any Robert E. Howard? Somebody has to. Anyway, I'll wrap this up, but I'll be back. Thank you, BookTube.